You can miss him, but you also know that he maybe wasn't the person for you. And I also don't think there is one person for you ever. I think there are people for different reasons, and people enter into your life for different seasons and different lessons. And every single person who comes into your life teaches you something. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Feels Dropbox. If you're new here, hi, I'm Lauren. I'm a 32-year-old artist living in New York. And I started this podcast because I wanted to create a space online that felt safe for people to be themselves and share their stories. I have been making content for about a year, and since I've been making that content, a lot of people share their stories with me. And so because of that, I wanted to share those stories with the greater community and know that you are not alone in any of your struggles. We are all just human doing human things. And there are things that we struggle with often with our mental health and dating and relationships, and life is not easy. But when we share them out loud and we're given the space to do, sometimes it makes us feel a little bit better and a little bit more seen. So that's why I created this space. And if you ever feel called to share a story as well, the link is in the show notes and in the caption. And remember that all these stories are anonymous unless specified otherwise. Feel free to share your story and ask for any advice if you need it. This is a space for you to just be yourself and be your most creative, authentic self, because I think we need reminders sometimes that we are all just human. Also, please feel free to leave a comment for the original poster if you have a story that you want to share as well, or any advice that you want to give. But also, please remember to be kind in the comments, because at the end of the day, your life is yours, theirs is theirs, and mine is mine. And there is really no need to tell people how to live their lives. Anyways, without further ado, this episode is about trusting your own intuition and knowing when to walk away from a relationship, even if it's something that you really want, and not falling for someone's potential. So this story is from Anonymous. Hello, I'm a new follower and I've been really enjoying reading your blog and content. Thank you so much. I am also in my 30s, working on myself to be more secure, and I feel like I've put in so much hard work, but I still haven't found my person. I was, or maybe I am, still into a guy who lives in New York and I am based in LA. We're exclusive for a little while, and throughout the time that we were together, I felt like I've grown so much from my previous relationship. I am more self-aware. I pause before I react. I challenge myself when I know that my brain is going through the old route that I want to reprogram. I also think he's a great potential partner. Yet my intuition told me that something is not enough. When I brought it up to him, his reaction was, yes, I understand, and it's not fair to you, but I did tell you that I'm not ready for a relationship. It broke my heart that I did see him putting in the effort into us, and he said he has liked me more. But I also know that I can't carry the weight and live off of the potential of him being ready one day. So I called it. He wanted to stay in touch, but I said it's not necessary. You can always contact me when you're ready for something real. It's the first time I didn't put in a lot of effort to make it work, because I know my intuition is telling me something, that I should trust myself. I'm a little bit over a week out of this relationship, but I still miss him and wonder about all the what ifs. Yet deep down I know this is just the process of me learning how to trust myself more. Not sure if I have a question here, but just want to let you know that I am also learning to enjoy the journey, deal with loneliness, yet not losing hope on finding love. Thank you for sharing your stories and your self-growth journey. So first of all, thank you so much for sharing your story. I personally related so much to the story, and it's also why I chose it for today's episode, because I feel like it is something that a lot of people do go through, where you spend some time getting to know yourself when you're single or when you're on a healing journey, and you get to know yourself and your own triggers and traumas. When you get to a point of truly learning about yourself and loving yourself, when you enter into a new relationship, you are more able to speak at what your needs are, and you know what your boundaries are. So when you become healthier within yourself, you can enter into a healthier relationship dynamic as well. And I relate so much to this story because I don't know if you guys follow me on Instagram or YouTube or TikTok or on Substack. This is where all my things are. And I have been sharing the story of when I went to San Francisco for an adventure, and I met a guy there. And this relationship has been the healthiest I've ever been in. Yet there are still things that we have to work through. And before I went into this relationship, I thought I had healed through everything, and I understood my own triggers and traumas, and I knew where my own personal toxic patterns had been. But once I entered into this relationship, it allowed me to see parts of where I was still insecure about, and where I could focus a lot more of my energy into fulfilling my own needs and not needing someone else to do that for me. I really want to commend you, first of all, for recognizing that you had old patterns that you wanted to break, and that you were aware of them this time entering this new relationship. And also the fact that you listened to your intuition and trusted that even though this might have been something or someone that could have given you the relationship that you wanted, it doesn't necessarily mean that you stay just for the potential of someone, right? Like, you stay because you choose to be with that person. And in this instance, you chose yourself. And I think that is something that takes a lot of courage and bravery to trust your intuition, first of all, and also recognize where you deserve more. And you deserve someone who chooses you fully and not someone who tells you one thing and then doesn't act upon it afterwards. Something I also wanted to note was that you said, I feel like I've put in so much hard work, but I still haven't found my person. And I really resonate with that. I think in the past, I also was on a healing journey, and I've thought that, oh, once I reach a certain point of how healed I was, then my person will just show up, and then I will just be able to miraculously be in a happy marriage or a happy, healthy relationship. And I think there's a tinge of truth to that, but there's also a bit of black and white thinking there too, right? Like, you don't have to be fully healed in order to be in a healthy relationship. A lot of the healing that we do comes when you're in a relationship. There's a lot of healing to be done when you're single, but there's also a lot of healing that can be done in a partnership. And I used to think that if I entered into a relationship and I felt myself feeling insecure or anxious or worried or nervous, or I felt certain parts of my childhood traumas or hurts come up in that relationship, that meant that I wasn't ready for a relationship. And I don't think that's true anymore. There's so much to be said about healing with someone else, because when you're in a relationship, especially in an intimate relationship, that person becomes your mirror, and that person can mirror so many things to you that you are not able to see when you're alone. And I'm not saying that you have to do the rest of your healing work in a romantic partnership. You can absolutely do a lot of that work in your platonic friendships, in your familial friendships. There's a lot of different types of relationship in your life that also become mirrors to the parts of yourself that you maybe don't want to look at. And I think the way you heal through a lot of that is to look at it. You can't heal anything that you don't face. And when you don't face the things that you don't want to see, it's really hard to heal those things, right? If you're constantly avoiding the things that make you feel uncomfortable and bring up anxious feelings, and you just squash down negative feelings, I don't think that you'll be able to heal through those things. I've tried to be someone that was like, oh, I want to push away all my anxious feelings. And when I'm not anxious, that means I'm healed. But you never know when someone will say something to you, whether it's a friend or a partner or a potential partner, who says something to you that you're like, whoa, why is this bringing up so much anxiety in me? Why is this bringing up so much of my insecurities? Why do I feel like I'm not enough? And I think that's the point of being in relationships. You grow so much more when you're able to look at those things that you're afraid of and avoiding and confront them and say, what is it here that I'm afraid of? And how can I approach it with compassion and love and bring myself more into connection with the other person or with myself, most importantly? I think all relationships allow us to grow in some sort of way, whether or not they're short situationships or very long-term relationships. And just because you're in a long-term relationship also, it doesn't mean that you're fully healed. I used to get that in my head and get it so confused that I thought, wow, I have friends who are married for years and years, or friends who have been in very long-term relationships, and in some way, I almost equated being in a relationship as being morally good, or that they were more healed. When I got to a certain point, I would talk to certain friends who were in really long-term relationships. A lot of them actually haven't dealt with their own traumas, and they just push it under the rug and don't want to deal with it. So I want to challenge that thought for you and for myself, to not think about it like, oh, I've done so much work on myself, therefore I deserve a relationship, or that people who are in long-term relationships or are married are more healed or not healed than you are. I think when I put marriage and long-term relationships and having a partner on a pedestal of thinking, once you get into those, it means you're healed and happy. And I don't think that's true anymore. And in regards to following your intuition, I want to give you so much credit for that. When you're in your healthy feminine and you trust your intuition, that tells you so much more than when you're in your wounded feminine. You become anxious and needy and wanting to control the situation because you feel like you're not enough. And it's so great that you were able to listen to your intuition, hear your intuition to tell you that something was not enough. And sometimes that in itself is so powerful. Even though it feels like such a small thing because it's so subtle, it is so powerful for you and your body to know that you are in a safe space. When your intuition tells you that something doesn't feel right, no matter how much you try to force it to work, there's always going to be something that feels off. And I think there's a difference between trusting your intuition and jumping to whatever first thought that comes. I used to think that trusting your intuition meant that, oh, if I feel uncomfortable here, I'm leaving. And I don't think I quite know how to explain what intuition feels like just yet. Sometimes I'll have thoughts that pop up, and I have to learn which ones are the ones I want to listen to and which ones are the ones I don't. And this works in the same way as reframing or reprogramming your mind, right? I can have a thought where I'm not enough. And if I trust that thought, that can shape me to become someone who then believes that she's not enough. Sometimes when we get into relationships, it gets really complicated, right? Like where, for example, you said that he said verbally that he was not ready for a relationship, but he did a lot of actions that made you think that he was putting in effort into this. And I think that becomes complicated and nuanced and becomes a little gray, right? Because we don't necessarily know what the other person is thinking at all times. And we also don't know what their intentions are behind the things that they're doing. Perhaps there was a part of him that really did want to be in a relationship with you, but his mind was telling him that he wasn't ready. And so his heart and his mind are doing two separate things. And when your heart and mind and body are not in alignment, that's when you can confuse a lot of things, right? Like it feels really confusing for yourself and for other people, the way that you're acting around them. And it's really commendable for you to be able to walk away from that, because you know that you deserve someone who's also fully aligned with themselves and also aligned with you. And it makes me so happy sometimes to read messages like these where a lot of us are learning and continue to learn how to choose ourselves first. And it's not in like a selfish way or anything, but it is truly just knowing where your boundaries are and what you deserve and when to trust yourself, right? Like I definitely have had so many experiences where I think to myself, what if I had waited for their potential? What if I had waited for this person to become the person that I wanted them to become? And sometimes we don't know. Like life is full of what ifs, and we can spend hours and years contemplating the what ifs. But if currently in present moment, he is not giving you what you need and isn't able to give you that secure partnership that you were hoping for and needing, it is so important that you were able to see that and walk away from it because you are choosing yourself and trusting yourself in that moment. While I'm on this healing journey, I've also learned so much about how multiple things can be true at once. You can miss him, but you also know that he maybe wasn't the person for you. And I also don't think there is one person for you ever. I think there are people for different reasons, and people enter into your life for different seasons and different lessons. And every single person who comes into your life teaches you something. I am currently in the situation where I am learning so much in the relationship that I'm in right now. I don't know if it's going to be a long-term relationship. I hope so, but it's also a delicate balance of knowing what is right for me currently and the person I want to become in the future. I think that's why relationships are so complicated, because you can really like someone in the moment and you can feel like so many things are so attractive about them and they're so interesting and there's so much that you want to learn about and there's so much chemistry. But there's also sometimes where you know that perhaps your futures aren't entirely aligned, or that what their journey is currently and what they're going through is not enough for you where you are in your journey. And I don't think that there is a perfect match for anybody. There is give and take for everything. There has to be compromise in relationship, but it doesn't mean that you compromise who you are and abandon yourself in the moment just because of someone's potential. I think a lot of us have that longing to be in a relationship, to be in a partnership, and to fully find that healthy love that I think a lot of us want and deserve. And it's amazing that there's so much work that we are doing now in therapy, a lot of the mental health work that I think we see online. It is so great that it is not as taboo as it used to be. And I'm so grateful that a lot of us are learning those tools to become the most fulfilled and healthy versions of ourselves, so that we can enter into relationships and friendships that are also healthy as well, and know where our boundaries are, and know that not everything is about us, but also not everything is personal. I think your intuition is something that is so powerful, and it is something that we can't take for granted. And honestly, sometimes your intuition can lead to heartbreak, right? Trusting yourself doesn't always feel easy or clean. Trusting yourself sometimes means choosing yourself even when you know that it might bring you a little bit of pain. I think you make a very good point where you said deep down, I know this is a process of me learning how to trust myself more. And I think that is really the point of life. As much as we want to say that I think life is complicated and there are so many different choices that everybody can make. And I think sometimes when you choose to do a lot of this internal work and follow your intuition and learning how to trust yourself, I think the human experience that we go through is to learn how to become our most authentic selves and learn how to become most in touch with our soul and our soul's journey, and to find alignment within that. I think there's a lot of things that when we're growing up take us away from that alignment. And that also might be just part of the story. That has to be part of the journey, that there's lows you go through and there's highs you go through. And the whole journey that we go through is just trying to find fulfillment within ourselves, finding our purpose, and becoming of service to other people within that story. Going through this mental health journey, I have been realizing that sometimes the loneliness is part of it. Feeling those negative feelings is just a part of it. It has to be part of it, because if it's not, we wouldn't learn the lessons that we do. We go through loneliness because we need to learn how to connect with people. And this is a little controversial because I think a lot of my friends disagree with me, but I think the depths of how much you can feel sad is also how happy you can be. And being healed doesn't mean that you're happy all the time. Being healed means being okay and accepting the lows and the highs all at the same time, that all of it is a part of your story. There is no part that is bad or good. I used to think that when I was depressed, it meant that I was bad, right? But sometimes when we're able to look at our lives with a very neutral lens, and the only thing that we see it as is what gives me energy, what fulfills me, and what drains my energy, and what doesn't fulfill me. And when we go through life balancing that and leaning more into what gives us energy, we can tap more into that intuition that is hard to listen to sometimes because there's so much distraction out there. When we tap into that, we can feel more joy from the smaller things in life. I have been the happiest I've ever been, and I don't think situationally anything has changed in my life. In fact, a lot of things have complicated it, but I have been able to tap into the more intuitive side of myself and find joy in very small things. And when you're able to do that and connect with yourself, the relationships you enter into become healthier because it is all a reflection of what is going on here. Thank you so much for sharing the middle of the process of the story with us here. I'm so grateful that people in this community have a desire to find that inner fulfillment and belonging and finding alignment within yourself. I know that this group of people who have come into this community are all like-minded people who want the best for themselves and want to grow and want to learn more and want to tap into that side of yourself where you can become your most creative, authentic, intuitive self. There are mysteries in life that we will not understand. And I think when you're able to tap into that intuitive side of yourself, life becomes just more beautiful. You stop judging everything based on society's metrics. Just because you're in a very long-term relationship, it doesn't mean you're more successful. And I think my metric for success is to become the most grounded, intuitive, creative, authentic version of myself that I can show up in this world and know that I am just being me, and that I am safe being me, and that it is okay to be messy. It is okay to show up unsure. It is okay to lean into uncertainty and know that sometimes I can be scared. Sometimes I will be anxious. Sometimes I will be depressed. But it doesn't mean that I am a bad person or a good person. It just means that I am a human. And I have gone yet again on another tangent, but I really do believe that we can see love everywhere and we can feel more loving when we are able to be more loving to ourselves and tap into that side of ourselves. All that to say, I just want to thank you for sharing your story. And for anyone else who is going through a mental health journey and also single or dating, I just want to remind you that you don't have to be fully healed to date. You don't have to be fully healed to be in a relationship. You just have to be aware. And sometimes when you are aware, I think that is a sign that you are truly healing. Everybody has past experiences, everybody has fears, everybody has patterns that they bring into relationships. But when you are aware of them, that's how you can enter into a more healthy dynamic of communicating clearly and fulfilling your own needs. I think the whole point is to understand and be aware of your patterns so that you don't recreate old dynamics, but can learn how to build healthy new ones for yourself and for other people. I think this story is a perfect example of someone who found growth through that self-awareness. And I think being aware is probably the biggest part of healing a lot of those pains that we go through. Anyways, I think that is all for today's episode of Feels Dropbox. If you so feel called to share a story, just know that you can share your story in the link in the description or in the show notes. Thank you so much for all of you for sharing your heart with me. I have been reading through a lot of these stories, and I have to say, I have a lot of story submissions to go through, so I apologize if it feels like I'm going through these too slowly, but I do want to give space to every single story, so I am trying to work through this myself, but I just want to thank you so much for sharing your humanity with me. It is not lost on me that I've created a space on the internet for people to be authentically themselves and share their stories of struggles, and there aren't enough spaces like that. And I really do think when we allow ourselves to be fully human and fully the messy versions of ourselves, we can help each other become more loving, become more creative, and become more authentic and show up and feel safe to do so. So thank you so much for trusting me with your stories. I hope I am doing a good job for you guys, and I hope that you are enjoying these. Please like, subscribe, comment, do all the things, and I will see you next week. Have a good day. Bye.